Hello and welcome to Wisp Sports Radio's Athlete Profile Series. I'm Chris Stafford and my guest today is big wave surfer Paige Alms, who recently won the notorious Jaws event in Hawaii. At 28 years old, the Canadian has made Maui her home where she's guaranteed the big waves she needs to train. Paige is considered the world's best female big wave surfer in a sport that carries high risk and demands courage to ride a wave that can swallow you up and carry you under. There are relatively few women among the ranks of this male-dominated sport, but Paige has been riding the waves for 18 years now. She made her competitive mark by winning the NSSA Open Women's Explorers title in 2006. In 2005, she stole the surf world's attention when she threaded through the barrel of a 20-foot-plus wave that she paddled into at Jaws. Also in 2015, Alms was nominated for the ESPY Award for Best Female Action Sports Athlete and received the Women's Best Overall Performance Award at the WSL Big Wave Awards. Welcome to the program, Paige.
Thanks for having me.
So home is now in Hawaii, although you actually were born in British Columbia on Vancouver Island, weren't you?
I was born in Victoria, and I lived there with my mom until I was 7 years old. And then we sold our house and traveled around Australia for a year, just my mom and I. Camping and staying with friends, and we went around the entire country in 10 months. And then when we were done with that, we moved to Maui. We'd come once or twice a year to visit friends and family that live here, and it was somewhere we decided to stay, and it's been home since I was 9.
Well, I did read somewhere that you had your first surfing lesson in Byron Bay, which is a spot I particularly enjoyed too in Australia. And we want to talk about how you got to the level you have done in surfing, because this is a sport that's very male dominated, isn't it? We've had recently Kelly O'Mara explaining to us about Mavericks and now it being more open to women, even though it was never closed to women. There's been a lot of changes in the sport, but still it's very much male dominated, isn't it? How have you in your career sort of overcome that sort of stigma of it being a male dominated sport?
Oh, it's kind of a funny thing. It's like there's normally out in most lineups, it's a male-dominated lineup for sure, but it's not something that I grew up looking at it like I was only one or two of the other girls in the lineup. It was more about just growing up and being a part of the ocean, and I think we're all just lucky to be able to share that. And I've never felt like a minority or different, really. I grew up playing soccer and baseball and tennis and doing all these different sports alongside the boys, so I never really thought of myself being any different. So now it's definitely more of a topic that I'm getting used to speaking about, because especially in big wave surfing, there's only a few of us. It's a really small group of women around the world that are doing what we're doing, and I'm really honored and happy to be representing, and definitely want to continue pushing the level of the sport and just being a good representative all around for female athletes.
It's interesting that there are only so few. I mean, a lot of sports, they're high-risk sports, like big wave surfing definitely is. I mean, you could get that in sailing if you were sailing in the Southern Ocean or galloping a horse at a solid fence. There are lots of high-risk sports for women, but this one really does take some guts, because it is really, really high risk, isn't it, when you get into those huge, huge waves? Somewhere from between 25 and 60 feet, did I read, Paige? I mean, these are big waves.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, like, when it's the really big and dangerous days, it's life-threatening, like what we're going out and dealing with. We're dealing with moving mountains, and they're unpredictable, and every single wave is different. So for sure, that's always in the back of your mind, that what you're doing is extremely dangerous. But that's kind of the same for snowboarding and skiing and sports like that, the terrain is always changing and it's always different, and you have to learn to adapt. And that's something with big wave surfing, and I think that's something that a reason why we're so drawn to it, and the passion and the love for riding waves. It's never exactly the same, and your lineups and the conditions and the waves and the people and your board, there's so many different variables. So that's why it makes it so special. It's definitely a dangerous sport for sure. And I've had plenty of injuries and accidents from surfing, but you can't go out thinking that you're going to get hurt or get injured. You go out to do what you've trained to do, and it's something that I truly love doing.
Well, it is about channeling your courage and measuring the risk, isn't it, when you go out there? And also understanding the sea, the seasons, the weather, the waves, and the terrain, as you say. It seems to me that's pretty much on the day, though. How much can you get used to where you're going to, especially if you're going to a different venue? You're not just training at or you're competing at home. How much can you get used to that before you actually compete, Paige, in a different environment?
Well, the competition aspect of it is pretty new for us, as there's only been a couple events for us. The first one being the Pe'ahi Jaws event that happened about 10 days ago. That was the first World Surf League competition. We've had a few other expression sessions and an event in Oregon. So it's all relatively new for all of us. But the actual big wave surfing community and what you have to do in order to be at these different locations for these storms, it's like you literally have to drop everything you're doing and pick up, pack your boards, fly halfway around the world, wake up somewhere maybe you've never been, unpack your gear, and go out there and deal with these conditions. So it's kind of something that you have to know in your mind that you need to be able to adapt. And that's something I'm still learning. I think every big wave surfer will say that every session is a learning experience. And I definitely feel like that, especially here at home. Just how many sessions I've had out at Jaws, every single time it's different. So you really have to learn to be flexible. And that's something for sure, traveling to these different locations, you have to keep that always in mind and just be open for the experience and don't go into it with expectations.
Explain to us why you have to be towed out to those big waves. That there are two forms, and surfers will recognize this: the paddle versus the tow-in, right? Where you're allowed, to be towed out to those big waves to catch the huge waves there. Explain to us a little bit about that and which you prefer.
Okay, well, essentially, paddle surfing is what we all do. Like, to be a surfer, you have to be able to paddle and catch your own waves. And big wave surfing, big wave paddle surfing is just a branch off of that. You're on the big board and you're in bigger waves. It's still the same feeling that you get from riding smaller waves. You are out there on your own merit. You're using your own two arms and your own skill and knowledge of the ocean to catch these waves. Whereas tow surfing, you're being towed on a tiny little board that's built strictly to go extremely fast, and you're relying on your tow driver that is driving the jet ski, and you're hanging on to a rope that's 15, 20, 25 feet long, and you're relying on them and their skill level and their experience in the water. So truly, once you're on the wave, tow surfing, it's all about your level and what you feel comfortable doing. But to catch the wave, you're relying on someone else. So it's a completely different sport. Both are, I love doing both. I got into big wave surfing originally when I was 15. I had a paddle session with my mentor, Shaper, at the time. And I was riding a big 9-foot board. And at the time, that was really big for me. And then growing up here on Maui, it wasn't until 5, 6, 7 years ago that big wave paddle surfing at Jaws was actually thought that it was possible for the really big days. And so we were used to tow surfing out there. And for me, it was just like you kind of grew up around all these heroes and these guys that had been doing it for so long that you kind of just, it was a natural progression to just want to go out there and do it. And tow surfing is so much fun. You catch so many waves. The risk isn't as high depending on what wave you're surfing and who's your driver. I think safety is always the first concern when you're going out in big waves, so you're making the right decisions. And I've always been with drivers that I really trust and truly know that if things hit the fan and I needed to be picked up in a really bad situation, that they could do it. So I've always felt a lot safer. Tow surfing, paddle surfing, you're on your own and you're with a big board and you're out in the ocean and you can only rely on yourself and your skills. So they're both equally as exciting, but I truly think they're just completely different sports.
What is the biggest wave you think you've surfed, and how do you actually measure these? I mean, I suppose it's guesstimate, right? 25 to 60 feet. I mean, what would be the biggest you think you've ridden?
I think probably the biggest wave towing I caught was maybe almost a 50-footer, like high 40s, and then paddle surfing, probably the biggest wave was like a 40-foot face, like give or take. It's hard to say. They're all big.
Can you remember the moment when you had the most euphoric moment, Paige? I mean, I'm sure there are many when you just catch the right one, the timings. It's all about timing, I guess. It's everything comes together perfectly. What have been those highlights so far of your surfing career?
All right. Well, I've had quite a few memorable rides for sure, but I think the best wave and the most memorable one for me was 2 years ago. I caught a wave out at Jaws that I got barreled on, and for those that don't know what that is you're not just riding the wave going down the mountain, you're actually riding inside of the wave, where you bottom turn off the bottom of the wave and come up inside this cavern. And we call it getting barreled. And ultimately, that's the best feeling in surfing that I've ever experienced. And for most surfers, they'll say the same thing. It's kind of a feeling that you feel that time stands still. You're extremely in the moment and just focused on what you're doing in that wave. And for me, that was a wave that I paddled myself into on a 9.4 surfboard that's pretty big, and rode it perfectly and came out in the channel amongst all of my friends. And that for me was definitely the most memorable ride I've had in my entire life.
That's awesome. I mean, I've seen images and videos of this Paige, but is that ultimately more dangerous to be barreled?
It kind of depends on the wave. Like, of course, like a surfer will tell you that the best place to fall in a hollow barreling wave is inside the barrel. Just because you're inside and you're somewhat protected, you're amongst the water rather than having the lip line of the wave actually break directly on you with the whole force of the ocean. But I think it depends on your skill level and where you are as far as timing on the wave. We go back to timing. Everything is timing in surfing and being there at the right moment. And I wouldn't say it's more dangerous, but it's definitely something that takes more skill level to read the waves that way, especially in bigger waves.
I can imagine it. I want to talk a little bit about training for this, because obviously it's like any sport. You do so much training in the sport itself, but I would imagine outside of that, though, core and cardiac, that combination is pretty essential. How much would you do out of the water, Paige?
Well, in the past, I'd say 5 years or so, I've taken things a lot more seriously as far as training in the gym and outside of the water. With that, I think it was a transition from being a young teenager into my young 20s, and then realizing that if I was going to keep up with what I was doing, that I had to put in a little bit more time and effort. And ultimately, for me, my confidence level is boosted when I'm feeling completely physically fit. So for me, a normal routine when I'm at home is I'm in the gym. I train at Deep Relief Peak Performance Gym here that's minutes away from my house. It is owned by one of my friends, and I'm in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, doing a little bit of everything. That's not 4 to 5 days of extremely hard workouts. That's a program that we set up at the beginning of the week, depending on the surf and what my work schedule's like and all of that. And so I'm doing that, and then of course trying to surf every day. That's obviously the best training you can do as a surfer. And in order to have more knowledge and more time in the water, you're only going to get better. So that's definitely the most important. And then we do a lot of breath hold training practice, and that gives you the confidence to know that you can hold your breath and stay calm when you're knocked down. So yeah, definitely take training very seriously. It's something that I really enjoy. I've kind of become addicted to it, and it makes me feel really good. And that's the point, right?
Exactly. An athlete addicted to training. There's nothing new there, is there? So let's talk a little bit about the opportunities. You mentioned, obviously, Jaws is very famous, the event that you just took part in, and there's the Mavericks that we've read about recently. That's very few big opportunities. Where do you see the sport going now for women?
Oh, I think it's only the beginning. Like, this Pe'ahi event was the first of its kind, and there were only 12 women invited to be a part of it. And if you think about that, 12 women in the entire world that are invited to this contest, it's crazy. So I think that being said, it's a very small number of women that are big wave surfers, and guys for that matter. Like, it's a very small percentage for how many surfers there are in the world. I think it's only going to get better, the sport. The women are progressing every session, every time we have an opportunity out in the lineup, and every time we all get together and share waves, the sport's being pushed and progressed. So I'm sure there's going to be more competitions. I'm assuming that there's going to be a few next year, I hope. And then with that, just like I said, more experiences out in the water. Big wave surfing isn't all about the contest. It's more about the waves that you ride. So those are the ultimate prizes, is the opportunity to ride these moving mountains. And it's definitely a kind of a spiritual thing, in a sense, that we all get to share. And yeah, like I said, the sport's being pushed every day. And who knows what's going to be next week, but I'd say in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot more women in the lineup, and yeah, doing things that we only dreamt about doing.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's still a long way off making a living out of it, though, isn't it? I mean, sponsorship is available, but what's the prize money like? I mean, do you do exhibition competitions or events? What are the revenue streams here now? Because I know you've done a number of jobs just to make ends meet, haven't you, over time?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's only a matter of time before these companies latch on to big wave surfing, because I think it's the most marketable aspect of surfing for the non-endemics. And like, surf companies, you can only market surfing in a certain direction, and there's all of these companies that are kind of now picking up on surfing as like the new cool thing. And as far as their marketing and advertising, if you walked into a store and saw someone in an advertisement riding a huge wave, people admire that and look at that and are astonished, and they can relate to it in a sense that they can respect it. And I think just like shortboarding and just regular surfing is hard for people that don't know the feeling of riding waves or don't surf. It's hard for them to relate to that. They're like, oh, okay, they're playing. It looks fun, So I think money-wise, that's about to come. Like, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to do this as a living full-time. Like, I'm pretty lucky now, after 10 years of trying to be a professional surfer, I actually make a little bit of money from my sponsors that I'm so grateful to have. And I don't even have a main sponsor, so this is pennies, but it does help me go on some trips a few times a year and allows me to train 4 to 5 days a week. And I do have a couple other jobs. I work at a restaurant here on Maui, the Paia Fish Market. I work there 2 or 3 nights a week. And but yeah, it's only a matter of time before there's more money. The contests it's always awesome. I won $15,000 for the Jaws event, and that's insane. Like, it's an awesome check, and I'm beyond grateful. But for sure, like, what we're doing, that in 10 years might be $1 million. So you never know, like, where the sky's the limit as far as where the money is coming from. But we're not doing it for the money. Like, I'm going to do this with or without making money. It's what I love doing, and it's my passion, and I love being in the ocean and sharing the feeling with other people. So it's just great to be able to make a little bit of money doing what you love, right?
Oh, absolutely, every time. Now, what about coaching? Are there opportunities for women to be coaching in the sport?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. As far as the big wave aspect of surfing, it's something that you need mentors to kind of help you and guide you. And I'd say I wouldn't have gotten into big wave surfing without the people that have helped me. So for sure, there's opportunities to coach. I've been asked a few times to coach some younger kids, and I do as much as I can and help out as much as I can. I can't do it as a full-time job for sure if I'm going to continue focusing on being a professional athlete myself. But I think definitely in the future, that's something that I would love to be able to share with other kids for sure.
What events can you look forward to then? What's coming up next for Paige Alms and the surfing scene over the next few months?
Well, now it's November, and this is just the beginning of our winter season here on Maui. I'm primarily focused on just being here and being at every swell that hits Jaws. And also we have the Mavericks event that the holding period runs till the end of February. So that's something that I'll be focused on for sure. And I'd love to get over there. I have a couple good friends that live in the San Francisco area, and I want to get over and have more time and opportunities at Mavericks myself, just so that I can learn and get better. And so that's kind of my focus now. I might be going on a trip somewhere to a secret location next week, but like I said, my focus is definitely here and the swells for the winter, and then I like to go on surf trips starting in kind of April when things slow down here.
Well, for those who are listening to the show, Paige, and think they'd love to have a go at this surfing, maybe go from paddle to towing and to the big waves, what would you advise them to, even, or those that want to actually get started in surfing? Because it seems to be pretty simple. Oh, you need a board, you need to be able to swim, and you find someone to learn the sport off, and off you go. But what would be your advice to get started and then be more competitive?
Oh, I think, well, surfing isn't for everyone, and it's like most sports. You find your niche and what you like to do. And surfing is kind of this funny thing, because I've taught a lot of surf lessons, and some people love it instantly. They ride their first wave or their second wave and they're hooked. And it's something that they want to continue doing, and it's a feeling that they've never had before. And then you have people that it's not really their thing. They don't really like being in the water. You have to be pretty perseverant. You have to want to do it yourself. That's something you see when you give kids surf lessons. The ones that are going to be surfers and the ones that aren't are, right off the beginning. And it's the ones that get knocked down and fall and are tumbled underwater and get back up and want to catch another wave. So I like, if you have a surf lesson anywhere in the world and enjoy that feeling, it's one of the best feelings I've ever experienced. Riding a moving wave, like what other sport is like that, So if you love it, just get out there and do it and practice and enjoy being in the ocean. And as far as taking it to a whole nother level, I guess that's when you'll know that inside, if you want to become a competitive surfer, and just join your local events and get in the scene and talk to people and share. And you're bound to move forward. And
are there any good resources online?
Okay, there's quite a few surf websites out there that have stuff from all around the world. Surfline is a really good one, and then all of the magazines here, surfermagazine.com, Magic Seaweed. The websites are endless. That's what's super cool about the internet now, is things get shared worldwide instantly. So there's a lot of information out there. The internet is insane. You can find out anything you need to know.
Absolutely. And of course, social media. There's lots of opportunities through social media. Yeah. And how do we find you on social media then, Paige, if anybody wants to follow you?
I'm a huge fan of Instagram because I love photos and sharing videos. My social media handle on pretty much everything is Paige Alms, Paigealms. And then my Facebook, same thing, just my name. And those are probably the two that I use the most. Instagram is my favorite.
Okay, well, before we let you go, tell us what you most enjoy about being involved in the sport.
I think just the camaraderie with making new friends around the world, that's something that I think is the most important aspect of what we do and the most fun. And ultimately, it's these experiences that you have with your friends that you get to share and talk about. It. I think that and the waves that we get to ride, we're riding Mother Nature, and that's for me the best thing in the world.
And your top 3 career highlights?
Top 3, I'd say winning the Jaws event last week, that Jaws barrel that I got 2 years ago, and what would be my third? I'd say winning the XXL awards 2 years ago. Those are probably my top 3.
And much more to come from Paige Alms. Well, lovely to catch up with you. Congratulations again on winning last week at Jaws and for all that you're doing in the sport, and the very best of luck. Keep promoting women in the sport, won't you, Paige?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for this interview. I love speaking about the sport and women's sports and being involved. Thank you.
And to find out more about the sport, you can find some useful links and resources in our show notes at wispsports.com. And whilst you're there, you'll find much more global women's sports coverage on wispsports.com, because nobody covers women's sports like we do. And if you like what we're doing, be sure to share it on social media. Just follow us at Wisp Sports. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we love to hear from you too. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can drop us a line to info@wispsports.com. Until the next time, thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.